what aspects of Islam are personal for us and what aspects of Islam are for the community that you're living in. What's going to be on the outside, what's going to be on the inside. And these are two different things, obviously. Al-Muzammil was your nasib of Islam, what you get out of it. What you get out of it in terms of spirituality and connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and dhikr and tasbih and Quran and tawakkul, the things that fulfill your heart and make you feel connected and grant you that comfort and that serenity and tranquility and closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What it is that we are seeking and pursuing through knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and through reciting the Quran and learning our deen. Al-Mudathir talks about what is it that we're carrying towards the world. Because Islam is not just for our personal gain. Islam is for the world around us. It dictates a certain ethical standard and a certain degree of a certain set of behaviors that will be a benefit to the world around you. Islam is not just about what you are benefiting from when you perform it yourself, but it's also about what it is that what it is that you're offering the world around you. And really, when it comes to life, the most important piece of any way of life is whether, if everyone lived that same way, would the world function? If you're living in a way where if everyone followed your footsteps or followed your lead, the world would collapse, that means whatever way of life that you have chosen is not healthy, it's not appropriate. I'm not talking here about the profession you chose. It's not about profession. I'm talking about the ethical standard that you live by, the general, the perspectives, the values and principles that guide your decision-making process. If these are not something that everyone can afford to do, then the world won't work. Greed, for example, is a famous one. The world doesn't function if we're all greedy. If we all want more than what we need, then there won't be enough for everyone. So the world doesn't function if everyone behaves in a greedy way. So if you behave in a greedy way, then you have just administered or established or demonstrated a behavior that if everyone else did, the world would collapse, and you're at fault for that. Islam is the way of life where if everyone lived this way, there would be an abundance for everyone. The world would function properly, and people would be supported, and the needy would no longer be needy, and the weak would no longer be weak, etc., etc. And that's why Surat Al-Mudathir is important. That's why those first 7 verses in Surat, 7 commands in Surat Al-Mudathir, قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ وَالرُّجْزَ فَاهْجُرْ وَلَا تَمْنُنْ تَسْتَكْثِرْ وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. These are behaviors that if we all decided to follow, then the world would work well. If we all gave and did not perform man, if we did not remind people of our bounty upon them, and we gave selflessly and forgot about it, if we all took care of the cleanliness of our souls and the cleanliness of our clothing, and if we all took stands for justice appropriately, if we all spread the message in a way that is meaningful, then this is how the world functions. And that's why Surat Al-Mudathir is important to understand, because it's one of the earliest things he heard, alayhi salatu wasalam, one of the earliest things the Sahaba heard. In order for that to work, the surah would make a few comments after it gave those basic commands. And we went through those commands in some degree of depth a few weeks ago, so I'm not going to go over them again. But the surah talked about a number of important pieces that if you don't have them, then it doesn't really work. These commands don't function. The first one is that you have to be someone who accepts haqq. Like you have to accept haqq. You can't be like Al-Walid al-Mughira, where فَكَّرَ وَقَدَّرَ فَقُتِلَ كَيْفَ قَدَّرَ, where he thought and he saw the truth, but he just couldn't get over his own ego, so he decided to come up with a narrative to tarnish the Prophet ﷺ's reputation and the Quran. No, you have to be someone who's willing to accept the haqq, even if it means that you have to admit you were wrong. Even if that means you have to admit that you've been wrong for a long time. The second one that it pointed out is that this doesn't work if you are someone who gets caught up on meaningless details. If you get caught up on distractions, if you don't have the ability to see the forest through the trees, if you can't see the bigger picture, if you can't zoom out and focus on what actually matters, if you get caught up on the details that don't serve a purpose aside from being a part of every picture needs details. They're going to be there. If you're going to question every single one, you're going to ask why this angle is 90 and not 80, or why this is 75, or why this is that color, then you're not going to get anywhere. And you're going to lose track of what matters. And if even in Islam specifically, if you lose sense of the bigger picture, and you get obsessed by the details, you end up harming yourself more than whatever benefit you derive. And the third piece was that without accountability, none of this works. Without akhirah, without understanding كل نفس بما كسبت رهينة, which is what we spent last week or the week before, because last week was off, talking about. this ayah, that every nafs, every soul is going to be held accountable, is going to be held hostage by its deeds. That you are going to be held by your deeds. إِلَّا أَصْحَابَ الْيَمِينِ, except the people of the right side. Except those who understood that deeds were never enough to pay for Jannah to begin with. So they performed as many as possible, hoping only to gain by those deeds the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what they were looking for. The goal was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah upon them. They didn't see it as transactions. They didn't see that what they were doing was worthy of reward yawm al-qiyamah. No, those are the people who end up not being held hostage by their deeds, but everyone else will be. And if you don't believe in accountability, if you don't live a life where you actually accept that you're going to be accountable yawm al-qiyamah to everything, then Islam doesn't work. This whole philosophy collapses, it falls immediately. And we're going to talk about this in Tazkiyah, inshallah. We're going to start talking about accepting mortality and accepting accountability, because without it, nothing really functions in our deen. Leading me to the verses that we're going to recite today, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about Ashab al-Yamin, قَالَ فِي جَنَّاتٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عَنِ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. They are in gardens in paradise. يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. They're asking each other questions, like they're going back and forth in dialogue. And they're asking each other, عَنِ الْمُجْرِمِينَ, about the people who didn't make the right choices. Those who broke the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, broke the laws that were talked about at the beginning of the surah. What happened to them? What happened to Fulan? Where is he? Remember him? Remember that guy? Yeah, what happened to him? Then asking about Fulana, what happened to her? Remember her? Used to be a friend of ours. What happened to them? So they're asking questions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows them where they are. This is in my opinion, this is one of the scariest verses in the Quran. If we're talking about fear. And the scholars have often, historically, thrown their hats in the middle of the arena, choosing the ayah that has most rahmah in it, the ayah that has most hope in Allah's mercy in it, the ayah. When it comes to this fearful ayahs in the Quran, there's a lot that are filled with tarheeb, to bring a little bit of reverence in the hearts of the listener. I find these to be the most fearful verses, because the answers you're going to hear, the voices are coming from Jahannam, waliyadu billah. The answers you're going to hear tonight in these verses, they're not answers that you're listening to generically. No, these are answers you're hearing coming from the throats of people who are in Jahannam. And that's what we're going to read, inshallah. So I'm going to read, inshallah ta'ala, from ayah number 42. I'll read the whole thing until the end. There's only a few more lines, and then we'll go through the tafsir, inshallah. Hopefully, we'll wrap up the surah by the end, by 9 o'clock. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ما سلككم في سقر؟ قالوا لم نك من المصلين ولم نك نطعم المسكين وكنا نخوض مع الخائضين وكنا نكذب بيوم الدين حتى أتانا اليقين فما تنفعهم شفاعة الشافعين فما لهم عن التذكرة معرضين كأنهم حمر مستنفرة فرت من قسورة بل يريد كل امرئ منهم أن يؤتى صحفا منشرة كلا بل لا يخافون الآخرة كلا إنه تذكرة فمن شاء ذكره وما يذكرون إلا أن يشاء الله هو أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة. And Surat Al-Mudathir is an absolute masterpiece, linguistically and rhythmically and in every way, subhanAllah. It's easy for an untrained ear to appreciate the beauty of what you're listening to, even if you don't understand a word that's being said. مَا سَلَكَكُمْ, the question that is coming from the people in Jannah. Because Allah shows them, He shows them some of those friends they were asking about. The people who didn't follow any of the قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ, they didn't listen to any of this stuff. So they see them, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, in their spots in the hellfire. So He asked them, مَا سَلَكَكُمْ, what caused you to be taken forcefully? Silk is you force someone into a position, because no one goes to Jahannam willingly. This is something you've been forced to, you were taken there against your will. What caused you to be forcefully taken to this place, to Saqar, to this burning fire? So they offered 4 answers. And these are answers that are coming out directly from Jahannam. You don't have to believe anyone else in the world. You can hear it from the mouths of the people who are in the hellfire. They are there. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yatub alayhim, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, inshallah. And they are telling those who are asking them, what is it that took them there? They are offering their answers. Here's why we're here. As far as we understand, here's what we've done to end up here. So these, I can't imagine answers that are more valuable, right? قالوا, number 1, لم نكن من المصلين. We are not amongst those who established prayer. Salah was not important to us at all. We didn't care at all about the offering of salah, offering from Allah, meaning that Allah offered us this opportunity to speak to Him, so we didn't hold on to it. We didn't see it to be valuable. We didn't establish this connection with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. We shrugged our shoulders towards it, and this opportunity that He offered us to speak to Him, we completely overlooked it. So we didn't pray. لَمْ نَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. He offers you meetings, and we said no. He offered us to speak, to communicate, to supplicate, to invocate, to be in connection, and we decided, we refused. We didn't want it. لَمْ نَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. Number 1. That's an easy one, because we all know that, right? Every Muslim in the world agrees that, if you don't pray, then the odds of things working out for you are not that high. And some of us wish that that's where this ended. Or at least wish that maybe 2 and 3 weren't there. Maybe just jumped to number 4. وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. And we didn't actually accept, we turned our backs on the acceptance of the Day of Judgment. Of course, this is the third piece of Surat Al-Mudathir, the third comment. Right? The first comment was that you have to accept righteousness, you have to accept when you're wrong. Number 2, you have to focus on the bigger picture, you can't lose, you can't get obsessed by details. Number 3 is accountability. You have to believe that you're going to be held accountable. It's impossible for this to work. So وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. We refuse to accept that there's going to be a day where we are going to be held accountable for the choices that we made. But the ones in the middle continue to be a struggle for not just Muslims, but for human beings everywhere. وَلَمْ نَكُ, number 2, نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ. We were not people who fed the needy. We didn't feed the needy. I can tell you that people go through their full lives not thinking about this topic ever. If it wasn't for the fact that we had zakah in our deen and some shuyukh who called for sadaqah, most people go through their lives, they don't think about giving their wealth away. You fight too hard to get your wealth. You have to sweat day and night. You bleed to make the money that you make. It's an ongoing struggle with the world. It's an uphill battle trying to make a living. Give my wealth away to someone else? I need people to give me their wealth, not to give others their wealth. That's how most people think. Only philanthropy if it's going to benefit me. Only if someone's taking a picture. So somehow I gain a little bit of, get some recognition for being generous. The second reason the people in Jahannam feel that they're there for, after refusing to pray, is وَلَمْ نَكُ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ. We didn't feed the needy. This is what they feel. This is how they understood their punishment. They weren't people interested in that piece. They weren't interested in the miskeen, in the person who was miskeen. The word miskeen is now a global, within Islamic, within Islam, a global word. We all understand. It's a miskeen. Sometimes they're miskeen financially. Sometimes they're miskeen in other ways. Sometimes they can't take care of themselves. They just can't seem to get their act together. They're miskeen. They just don't know how to do it. They need someone to support them, to carry them, to help them, to look after them, to be their chaperone, their champion, someone to... We weren't there to feed. We didn't... And number 3, وَكُنَّا نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِضِينَ. Al-khawd has a couple of meanings in Arabic. There's different translations and different tafseers for this term. I'm going to choose the one that I think makes most sense, and I'm not going to go through all of them because it'll take forever. We're already at 8:30. Al-khawd ma'a al-kha'idin means going with the flow. Al-khawd is when you start talking about things that are meaningless just because everyone else is doing it. So it's going with the flow. It's a fascinating term in this. Like, I'm listening to someone who is in a place that the whole point of life right now is for you not to end up there, right? That's the only goal. The only goal is to make sure we don't end up there. So you're listening to someone speak from there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. And you're hearing him say, I didn't pray. All right, fair. I didn't feed the needy. All right, fair. We refused accountability. We lived as if there was no akhirah, as if there was no one going to hold us accountable. Fair. But then he says this one. In his perception of why he's in Jahannam, this is the perception of the guy in there. I'm not saying that this is the only reasons for Jahannam or the most important reasons, but for the person in there, for the purpose of these verses, that's what they're perceiving, their reason for being there. Is that they didn't have the qum piece at the beginning of the surah. When Allah said, Ya ayyuhal mudaththir qum, take a stand, not stand up, as we explained. It's not stand up, it's take a stand. You have to take a stand. You have to stand for something. Your life has to mean something. There has to be things that you accept and others that you refuse, and you have to live by principle. And if you don't, then you don't stand for anything and your life is meaningless. So you have to have qiyam, this important part. But they didn't. They didn't have it. That wasn't a part of their lives. نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِضِينَ. Whatever people were doing, we were doing. They're dancing, we're dancing. They're crying, we're crying. They're sitting, we sit. They speak. Whatever they want. نَخُوض. As people, we swam with the current. Put our heads amongst all the heads and hope that inshallah we don't lose ours. نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِضِينَ. Never works. It never works. It never protects you. It never has. It never will. It's a rookie move. It's a rookie move in life to think that if you just go with the flow, somehow you're going to stay under the radar and be exempted. And be exempted from catastrophes and from oppression and from loss. Just because everyone's doing it doesn't make it okay. It doesn't mean that somehow you're going to make it to the other. You're not. And I think one of the main deficiencies of our time as where we're living, is that we have absolutely lost touch with history. Historically, we don't study any aspect of history. As Muslims, this is one of our main flaws on an ummah level. I'm not talking about on an individual level, on an ummah level, on a national level. We don't study history. We don't understand the flow of humanity, the flow of civilizations. We are making the exact same mistakes that others made before us, and the same mistakes our ancestors made. We're making them time and time again. It's very depressing. It's very difficult to watch as we continuously make the same mistakes. And one of them is that when we feel the pull or the tide is going in one direction, it's just easier to flow with the tide. It's just easier. It's easier. It's not right, though. That's why the Prophet ﷺ would say, وَلَا تَكُونُوا إِمَّعَةً. Al-imma is someone who just, he's fluid, kind of goes and whatever. وَلَكِنْ وَطِّنُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Stand your ground. Establish your feet in the ground, so that as the winds hit you, as the tides and the waves hit you, you've established your feet in that spot and you're standing your ground. وَطَّنْتْ نَفْسَكَ. You've made a watan. Watan in Arabic means home for you. Like a home as in a nation, right? Like you've made a home for yourself here. You're not moving. I ain't budging. This is what I stand for, and I will stand here until I fall. And I will fall here as I stood. I don't go with the tide just to live an extra day. Just to maybe get a little bit more wealth. Just to gain a little bit more. No. We stood for nothing. We thought about nothing. We critically analyzed nothing. We never objected to anything. Whatever people were doing, we did. Al-Snam. Alcohol. Zina. Whatever. What else do you got? Whatever you're doing, I don't care. I have no reason to care. نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِضِينَ. People were doing ma'asi, we're with them. The voices that are screaming from Jahannam, this is what they're saying. We failed to establish our salah. We failed to feed the needy. We went with the flow. We lived our lives with no substance to it. We didn't stand for anything. We didn't have the courage, we didn't have the backbone to stand for anything. And we never really accepted accountability in our lives. We lived as if we were free from that. وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. We were told about it, it made sense, but we said no. You can still say that you believe in it and be amongst these people, by the way, just as a FYI type of piece. You could claim that you believe in it and still end up here. Because if the reflection of your life does not prove that you believe in accountability, then saying it doesn't mean anything. Like if you say, I believe that I'm going to be held accountable Yawm al-Qiyamah, but then we look at your choices and none of them reflect that. Like this is not the behavior of someone who's afraid that they're going to be held accountable later. Okay, choice 1, 2, 3, 4. These are not choices of someone who's afraid of accountability. These are not choices of someone who's fearing that later on they're going to be asked about what they did. These are just choices of someone who is greedy and selfish and wants what they want and took what they want, regardless of anything. So you can make the claim. We can all make the claim that we accept and we believe, and it doesn't mean anything unless it's reflected in behavior. So just remember that. وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ حَتَّى أَتَانَا الْيَقِينَ. Until the certainty of death came to us. Al-yaqeen is certainty. And this is referring to the fact that we all die. Until the certainty of death came to حَتَّى أَتَانَا الْيَقِينَ. Those are the words of these people from Jahannam. Now it cuts off and we get to hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make some comments. At the end of Surat Al-Mudathir, we get to hear some comments from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So far, the teachings have been pretty clear. He gave a set of 7 commands, each covering an aspect of life: social, financial, ethical, personal, physical. And then he gave us a few disclaimers, a few things that if you don't fix, you won't make it. You have to be able to admit when you're wrong and accept righteousness. You have to focus on the bigger picture. You have to be accountable. So at the end of all of this, because without these pieces, it's not going to work. قَالَ فَمَا تَنْفَعُهُمْ شَفَاعَةُ الشَّافِعِينَ. So what will the intercessions of those who intercede on behalf of others going to help them Yawm al-Qiyamah? If someone who knew them or loved them or cared for them, Yawm al-Qiyamah comes and says for the person who's in Jahannam, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, I want to intercede on his behalf. فَمَا تَنْفَعُهُمْ شَفَاعَةُ الشَّافِعِينَ. What will they benefit from? The intercessions of those who come to intercede on their behalf. The answer is nothing. وَكَمْ مِن مَلَكٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ لَا تُغْنِي شَفَاعَتُهُمْ شَيْئًا إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ أَن يَأْذَنَ اللَّهُ لِمَن يَشَاءُ وَيَرْضَى. And how many angels there are in the cosmos? Their intercession will benefit in no way except after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offers them permission to intercede and then accepts it from them. No one can come and tell God what to do. No one has that pull. Not even the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He only intercedes sallallahu alayhi wasallam to those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, offers him permission to intercede on behalf of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not be forced or pushed to remove. No. If you made the wrong choices, then there's كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ رَهِينَةٌ. That's what the verse said. This is a law. Every nafs, every soul is going to be held hostage by its deeds. So someone who لَمْ نَكُنْ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ لَمْ نَكُنْ نُطْعِمُ كُنَّا نَخُوضُ كُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ. All the wrong choices. Not just that they did. You see, it's easy to accept the first and fourth, like these sandwich reasons, like the buns are fine. Muslims accept that. Of course, you didn't pray, you didn't believe in Yawm al-Qiyamah, Jahannam. But what about feeding the needy? What about taking stands in life? What about those? We don't hear about those very often. We don't talk about those very often. Those are kind of ignored. But we accept the other ones. We'll tell people, if you don't pray, Jahannam. If you don't accept Yawm al-Qiyamah, Jahannam. But what about feeding the needy? What about taking stands that mean something? What about having substance in your life in terms of your character and what you stand for? Where does that play in? And when is that going to be talked about? And if the person in Jahannam is calling out saying, I did these things, that's why I'm here, then is there no fear that by falling into this trap you end up in the same place? If I said these things on my own, no one would accept them, right? If I decided to say that here's the reasons for going to Jahannam, and I added, and I said, well, if you go with the flow and you don't really take stands when needed, then it takes you to Jahannam, you're like, be quiet, Shaykh. What are you talking about? It's just, Allah says this. That's His words, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahi, if you find it in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, people ask, what is the authenticity? They would ask, is it sahih? Is there a context to it? Is there something to it? Alhamdulillah, this is not only in the Quran, it is one of the earliest surahs to ever be revealed to him, alayhi salatu wasalam, right? Mudathir, number 3 or 4. Some, Ibn Abbas is number 2. Ibn Abbas says, اقرأ باسم ربك مدثر. وكنا نخوض مع الخائضين. The Quran came early on and said, Qum, you have to take a stand. You have to stand for something. You can't afford to live life just going with the flow. You can't. No. It's one of the reasons for Jahannam. Right? The herd mentality, the crowd mentality. It's safe to be with whatever else everyone else is doing. It's unsafe when you stand out of it and say, I don't think this is right. There's something wrong here. There's atrocities happening. There's some oppression. It doesn't seem fair. There are people being harmed here. I don't think this is the right way to go by things. It's not popular and it's scary. But going with the flow may serve you in dunya, but it doesn't serve you in akhirah. So he comments, subhanahu wa ta'ala, قال فَمَا تَنْفَعُهُمْ شَفَاعَةُ الشَّافِعِينَ. So what will the intercessions of those who want to intercede benefit them yawm al-qiyamah? The answer is nothing. فَمَا لَهُمْ, and if that's the case, فَمَا لَهُمْ عَنِ التَّذْكِرَةِ مُعْرِضِينَ. So what's wrong with them? What's wrong with these people? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in a conversation that we get to listen to. He's asking the Prophet, what's wrong with these people that you're speaking to? فَمَا لَهُمْ. What's wrong with them? عَنِ التَّذْكِرَةِ مُعْرِضِينَ. They turn their faces away from your reminders. Why is it that you're reminding them of something? You're just pointing out, maybe you should think about this, and they turn their faces away. They refuse it, don't want to listen. Don't want you to remind me. Don't speak to me about this. This started to happen to him, alayhi salatu wasalam. We would come and say, I need to talk to you. And they're like, no, just go away. Just go away. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Go away. Don't speak to us. Don't nothing. Just walk away. They don't want to hear. In some narrations, they would run. I don't know if they did this to mock or if they did this in actual frustration. I don't know. But the narrations in Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham point out very clearly that the Prophet ﷺ would come up to them and they would disperse running in different directions. They'd run away because they want to get away from him. They do not want to hear. So the ayah here comments on that. فَمَا لَهُمْ عَنِ التَّذْكِرَةِ مُعْرِضِينَ. What's wrong with them? Every time they're offered a reminder, they turn themselves away and walk away. كَأَنَّهُمْ حُمُرٌ مُسْتَنْفِرَةٌ. They look like a group of stampeding wild donkeys. Al-humur is like zebras, or wild horses, or wild donkeys. Mustanfira, that are stampeding. كأنهم حمر مستنفرة فرت من قسورة, running away from a lion or a hunter. It's the opposite. You are bringing them a reminder that will save them. You're not there to. When wild donkeys run away, they run away from death. They run away from destruction. They only have this life. They don't have anything else. So they want to live as long as possible. They have nothing else. There's no Jannah waiting for them or nar. So life is life. They want to live as much as possible. So when a hunter or a lion, qaswara, the word qaswara is an Arabic word that is usually used to describe a lion, right? Some Arabs use it to describe hunters in general, but it's a very specific word. In the Quran, you don't find it again, and it's not really used very often. So when a hunter comes to an animal, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen to them. So they run away because there's harm for them. But why are they running away from you? You're not coming there to harm them. You're there to benefit them. فَرَّتْ مِنْ قَسْوَرَةٍ. And then he says, بَل. Bel means no, that's not the issue. They're not afraid of you harming them or no. Their problem is, and this is what the ayah says, and this is fascinating. قال بل يريد كل امرئ منهم أن يؤتى صحفا منشرة. Each person amongst them, they want to be offered صحفا منشرة. The suhuf are papers. Munashara, that are one on top of the other, separated. They're not stuck together. I mean, each one of them wants to receive revelation on their own from God. This is what the ayah is saying. The problem is each of them feels that they are worthy of receiving their own set of ayat and revelation. Suhufan munashara. That they have their own pages that has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's specific personal communication with them personally. That's what they feel. That this idea of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala communicating generally to human beings, and each person reading it as if it's, because it's addressing them personally as well, is not good enough. They want their own. They're not happy with Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam being the vessel through all of this being dispersed and explained. They want it their own. It's just a certain degree of arrogance or vanity or inflated ego where you feel you're that important. That why wouldn't he speak to me directly? Why do he speak to you and then you speak to me? No, I don't want that. I need you to speak to me directly in order for me to respond. Again, we go back to the same thing. If everyone, if that was the case, if that's your way of life, does that work? Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means Allah has to speak to every single one of us? Or are you an exemption? Meaning out of everyone else, everyone else can learn through Muhammad alayhi salam, but you get your own revelation. If you decide on a certain way of life for yourself, you have to see, does that work for everyone? If everyone does this, does it work? Is that how revelation is going to work? Is that how deen is going to work? That everyone is going to get their personal malak, personal Jibreel who will come and talk to them personally and give them their own Quran. And we're all prophets and we're all messengers receiving revelation from God, all of us. بَلْ يُرِيدُ كُلُّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ. Every person amongst them. And يُؤْتَى صُحُفًا مُنَشَّرًا. They want their own set of verses, set of revelation. كَلَّا. They will not receive that. بَلْ. And that's not even the real problem. It's two bel in a row in these verses, right? I've talked to you about this this word in Arabic, bel. It's important because bel, what it does is it disproves the previous point and proves a new point. So when you say bel, it's just one word in Arabic, but it means that no, that's not really what happened, or really the reason, or really the story. Here's what really happened, or here's the. So you say bel, you're denying the previous and you're affirming something new. You're affirming something after. So it's very rare to find two of them in a row in the Quran. Because usually one, you tell a narrative, and then bel, you're saying that was wrong. This is the real problem. That's not it. This is really it. Right? Once. For it to happen twice in a row, it's almost, you don't see it. It's not in the Quran. This is like the only place I'm aware of. There may be another one, but this is the only place I can think of. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that's not it, here's it. And not even this is really why. So first he said, no, they are mu'rideen. You are reminding them and they're turning their backs, running away as if you're there to kill them. Right? They're scared of you. As a zebra would be scared of a hunter or a lion, they're scared of you. But that's not really the case. The case is that they feel entitled to be given their own revelation. And they won't. But really that's not the real reason. The real reason, this is why this ayah is so important. بَلْ لَا يَخَافُونَ الْآخِرَةِ. They have no reverence for the day for accountability. They have no reverence for the day of judgment. They don't believe in it. They don't accept it. That's the problem. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this third piece of commentary on those verses that we talked about. This is very simple. 7 commands and then 3 pieces of commentary. This third one, he drills in this point. The real problem. The underlying problem deep down inside is they just don't believe they're going to be held accountable. They don't buy it. They don't buy it. This should stand as a very serious warning for everyone who's listening to me. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala digs 2 levels deep to talk about something, that means it applies to everybody. That means it applies to each and every one of us to a certain degree. If you are wondering in your life, why is it that I am not committed? Why is it that I'm not following the right path? Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that there's a reason, but that's not the real reason. And that reason is not even the real reason. The real reason, when you dig deep enough, is just you don't believe it. You just don't really believe it. You would like to believe it. You would love to believe it. You think it's cool to believe it. You respect the people who believe it. But you don't. And that's the end. Over the course of the next number of Tuesdays, I'm going to talk about mortality and accountability. I can tell you that throughout my experience of doing tazkiyah sessions and stuff, the moment I start talking about this, it thins out the crowd. It thins out my crowd every time. It has never failed me. It has never failed once. The moment I start talking about this, it thins out the group. You go from 100 people listening to 50. By half it drops. Because we don't like listening to it. We don't like to hear that we're going to die. We don't want to hear that we're going to be held accountable. We just don't want to. It's easier and much more enjoyable to ignore it. It is. I agree. I think it's way easier. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He comments subhanahu wa ta'ala on the answers that are coming from the midst of Jahannam, as they answer the questions of why they're there, and they say at the end of it, we refused Yawm ad-Din. This is the last one, right? We refused Yawm ad-Din. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so why are people running away from you? No? As if you're going to harm them. No, it's not that you're going to harm them. It's because they feel entitled to get their own revelation. But that's not really why they're not listening to you. It's because they don't really, on any level, accept that there's akhirah. They don't accept it. So you have to ask yourself this very, very intimate and personal question. Do you accept that you're going to be held accountable Yawm al-Qiyamah? And if the answer is I am not sure, if it's anything short than of 100% yes, then you have to spend time changing the way you see life and yourself and because it's not going to work for you. This whole philosophy of Islam, it just collapses. It doesn't work. It doesn't hold. It doesn't hold. The glue is not there. There's something missing, something fundamental missing. It's not going to hold. No, it's not that. لا يخافون الآخرة. The real problem is that they don't fear the akhirah. And this is the problem, right? The Arabs, they didn't deny God. No, they accepted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They accepted Him quite well, actually better than most nations did, despite their shirk. Despite their shirk, the fact that they believed in asnam and whatnot, the Arabs had a very unique way of seeing God, differently than maybe even those who had books like the Ahl Kitab, the Nasara wal Yahud. They have a distorted view of God. It's filled with blood and vengefulness and some degree. If you read the distorted version of the Torah and the Bible that exists today, the description of God in it is not flattering. It's not flattering at all. You couldn't stomach it. It'll actually bother you because they speak of God in ways that you don't accept as a Muslim. The Arabs, even though they didn't have a book, and even though they had al-Asnam and they accepted, when they spoke of Allah, as in the Khaliq as-samawati wal-ard, they had a certain reverence regarding it. That's why whenever you ask them, Man khalaqakum, man khalaqa as-samawati wal-ard, man yaqulun al-aziz al-alim, yaqulun Allah. They had reverence for Him. They just played around with it a little bit. They brought in associates to make it easier for them. So they had that reverence of God. The problem for Quraysh was not just, or the Arab was shirk, it was resurrection. Their problem was أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَبْعُوثُونَ خَلْقًا جَدِيدًا. What? Once I go into the ground, I'm going to come back again and be, no, sell that to someone else. That's not happening. إِنَّمَا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا نَمُوتُ وَنَحْيَا وَمَا يُهْلِكُونَا إِلَّا الدَّهْرُ. We just live until time takes us. We live and then we die, and that's it. There's nothing else after that. This was their problem. Like if you want to ask what the Prophet ﷺ, what uphill battle was he having with Quraysh or with the Arabs when he came to do da'wah? Two things. Shirk, removing that associates of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this one. That there's accountability. That there's akhirah. That we will be brought back again. And we will go through something that we authored. And we'll have to recite it back. And we'll have to explain why we chose what we chose and why we did what we did. And we have to have, unless we're Ashab al-Yameen, we're going to be held hostage by our choices and our deeds. But if you're Ashab al-Yameen, if you did enough and you did it with the right intention, you did it with the right enthusiasm, you did it with the right perspective and attitude with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you may just make it. You may make it to the other side. So he continues subhanahu wa ta'ala, كَلَّا بَلْ لَا يَخَافُونَ الْآخِرَةَ كَلَّا. No, that's not going to benefit them. The lack of fearfulness of akhirah for them is going to be harmful. كَلَّا إِنَّهُ تَذْكِرَةٌ. Indeed, what I have provided you with so far is tadhkirah, is a reminder. That's all. I'm just offering you a reminder. Why? Because there's no intention of forcefulness or coercion. There's no intention of you being against your will and you have to listen, you have to do it. No. It's tadhkirah. It's a reminder. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. It's absolutely your decision. كَلَّا إِنَّهُ تَذْكِرَةٌ. All of this, what you just heard, You recited with me Surah Al-Mudathir, you listen to the commentary, all of it, tadhkirah. This is important, by the way, for within communities, to remember that we are not accountable to forcefully change people's behavior. Our job is to make sure that we present the reminders in ways that are digestible, like mentally, that are comprehensible. People can understand them. They can relate to what's being said. But then everyone will make whatever choice they're going to make. You are entitled to make your choice. It's a tadhkirah. It's nothing else. It's not qaswara and humrun mustanfira. It's not a person who's hunting you with a gun. You have to do this. No. You do what you want. You do absolutely what you want. Just know that with the wrong choices, you may be at the wrong side of this dialogue. Just understand that there's a possibility that you end up on the wrong side of the dialogue. When he says, مَا سَلَكُكُمْ فِي سَقَرْ قَالُوا لَمْ نَكُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. There's a conversation happening. Don't end up on the wrong side of that conversation. That's all. Just make sure you're on the right side of that conversation if you end up on it. كَلَّا إِنَّهُ تَذْكِرَةٌ فَمَنْ شَاءَ ذَكَرَهُ. Whoever has the willingness, whoever has the intention, whoever has the willpower, whoever wants to, whoever makes that intention, ذَكَرَهُ, will use it as a reminder, will actually be reminded by it. Will use it as something beneficial for them. ذَكَرَهُ, I mean, it'll help them and offer them something to remember. فَمَنْ شَاءَ ذَكَرَهُ وَمَا يَذْكُرُونَ. And remember as well that no one is able to perform tadhkirah, to actually perform, to be reminded and to benefit from it, إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ, except through the willingness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except through the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in mashiyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the end, you don't do anything against His will. You're not doing anything against your will. It's tadhkirah, it's a reminder for you, so it's not against your will. But remember that you don't get to do anything against His will either, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just so the relationship is absolutely clear. He is not forcing you to do anything outside of your will. You get to do whatever you want. It's tadhkirah. Take it or leave it, it's up to you. But remember that you don't get to do anything against His will either. وَمَا يَذْكُرُونَ. And no one remembers, or doesn't remember, إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ, except Allah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offers His permission. هُوَ أَهْلُ التَّقْوَى. He is the one that is worthy of being mindful of. Taqwa is where you protect yourself from something. هُوَ أَهْلُ التَّقْوَى. I mean, He is the one worthy of you protecting yourself of His wrath, and protecting yourself of that punishment, protecting yourself of being in that spot that we just listened to. هُوَ أَهْلُ التَّقْوَى. He's worthy of that. No one else is really. وَأَهْلُ الْمَغْفِرَةِ. And He's the one that's worthy of you seeking His forgiveness. Seek taqwa from Him. Seek a space that is safe, where you are not in the wrong place, where you're not going to be punished. Seek a place where you are worthy of His forgiveness. That's His final advice, subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the end of Surah Al-Mudathir. That whatever you do, make sure you're in the right place. He is Ahlul Taqwa and He's Ahlul Maghfirah. He is the one that is most worthy of you protecting yourself from, and most worthy of you seeking forgiveness. Another way of understanding this ayah is also who Ahlul Taqwa. I mean, He is the one who is most capable of granting you taqwa. And He is the one who's most capable of granting you forgiveness. No one else is. And that's, I think, it's more suiting to the actual flow of the verses, but either way is fine. I'll end with that, inshallah. That's the end of Surah Al-Mudathir. I hope you found that beneficial. We'll start Surah Al-Qiyamah, inshallah ta'ala, next week. It's a roller coaster of a surah, and you'll find it very beneficial, and hopefully, if you have not memorized it, you will. Subhanakallah bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina wa habibina wa qurrati a'yunina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakumullahu khairan wa baraka.